Deji, good morning and thanks for being here.
Good morning, thanks for having me.
Well, while going through this story, it's rather another sad situation. A case that we've seen way too many times, still reoccurring and happening again. The police officers in whose names you've also mentioned in terms of the press release. And here we are again from 2021 up until now. Can you shed more light on why the story continues this way and why the police, especially looking at the officers, have not been brought to book?
Well, thank you again for having me. You know, it's a sad one, a sad reminder that there's so much to be done, not just in the Nigerian police force, but within the entire accountability mechanisms in the law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. After a judgment of the High Court of River State, the recommendations of the panel of inquiry set up by the National Human Rights Commission, and recall that this panel was set up in the first place as a result of widespread allegations of human rights abuses by members of the Nigerian police force. That was what led to the NSAS protest that we all witnessed with its consequences. And then one will now wonder that after all of this, we have not learned lessons, because really it is the failure of the accountability mechanisms that led to the protests that we saw, that led to the pent-up anger of the young persons across the country. And now we still have those same issues still surrounding all of still very much existing within the law enforcement agencies in Nigeria. Because where law enforcement officers armed by the Nigerian taxpayers to protect the lives of citizens, can simply abduct a person, demand for basically ransom, as far as I'm concerned, and when it is not given, extrajudicially execute the citizen, and nothing will happen in terms of accountability. Then it calls to question our commitment, whether we are genuinely committed to accountability for wrongful actions by law enforcement officers. It's been 4 years since 2021, since the recommendations of the National Human Rights Commission. Nothing has been done. But we're hopeful, really. We're hopeful that with the Police Service Commission and the renewed vigor that the new chairman has brought in, that indeed this case will be looked into, and hopefully something will be done about it.
Can you walk us through what the recommendations of the National Human Rights Council were?
Well, the panel set up by the National Human Rights Commission made recommendations, first of which was monetary compensation for the wife, the widow of the deceased, and which was paid, and we must give kudos to the panel and the National Human Rights Commission for that. But you see, beyond that, the panel also made recommendations for the prosecution, investigation and prosecution of these officers. Now, sadly, this has not been implemented, and that exactly is why the family has not had closure. And it is more worrisome for them when they now cite the vehicle of the deceased being driven by one of these officers around River State. It becomes a really troubling incident, because these were things that happened between the family members and the officers, because the officer said, we will do this, nothing will happen. And indeed, it appears like those threats that they made is exactly what is happening, because nothing is happening to them beyond the monetary compensation paid by the National Human Rights Commission.
Now, Mr. Ajare, is the Nigerian Police High Command aware of this beyond the Nigerian Police Service Commission? And why do we see almost a culture of impunity when it comes to conduct of men and women of the Nigerian police? This is 4 years post NSAS, and it seems nothing changed.
The Nigerian police is very well aware of this matter from 2019 when it started. Several letters were written to the Inspector Generals of Police, the Complaints Response Units. Let me tell you one interesting thing that happened at about 2021 on this matter. One of the complaints that was forwarded to the complaints response unit was, being treated, and officers from that unit were dispatched to Akwa Ibom State, where Cross River State rather, where the unit that arrested Dumsira was located. And these officers who went to investigate this matter were threatened by these same officers that we're talking about. They threatened to kill them. So they left that place horribly, for the safety of their lives. And in fact, this was reported by the then head of the complaints response unit. He tweeted it. We attached a copy of the tweet to the Police Service Commission. It just tells you, talking about the culture of impunity. Remember, this is within the police force itself. The internal accountability mechanism, the complaints response unit that was supposed to investigate and probably make recommendations to the IG of police was threatened, and they had to run away, and there was nothing they could do about it. It tells you, so you have certain persons within the force who are untouchables. You have certain persons who can do whatever they like, and they will always be protected. That is the lesson one is lesson from this incident. And it is not just that. You also had, even the legal department then too, also sent a team, and then nothing came out from it. So it is really worrisome. It shows you that that culture of impunity is deeply embedded. And as of today, there is not enough that is being done to uproot that culture.
And what are your expectations? You're asking that the NHRC's implementation or suggestion be the recommendations rather be implemented. You're asking for financial compensation, and you're asking that the vehicle be returned to his family.
And also the officers should be brought to book.
Right. Do you have faith that all these that you're asking for will be granted?
Well, the truth of the matter is this: the more we lose total faith in our system, that is the day the system itself ends. I am very hopeful, but I am not naive, and we are relying on public pressure and fully the legal process and the conscience of those who are in authority today, particularly the Police Service Commission and the Attorney General of the Federation, that justice, though may be delayed, but it will not be denied. And we hope that the law will serve its purpose ultimately, and that it will protect those who are weak and do not have a voice. But like I said, the monetary compensation has been awarded and in fact paid to the family. The vehicle, like we said, has not been returned to the family. It is hoped that this will be done. But beyond that, and I think the family, in order to have a proper closure in this case, would like to see those who are behind this very horrible experience of theirs brought to book, and that is in terms of either being prosecuted, investigated and prosecuted as the authorities find deem fit.
Now, Mr. Ajare, do you have any information on ASP David Ameh Agbo, ASP Martin Samuel, and DSP SCN Edet? Are they still in service of the Nigerian police force as we speak?
As at the time this statement was released 2 days ago, yes, all three officers are still in the Nigerian police force. In fact, information reaching us is that maybe all of them might have been promoted as at the time this press statement was released, which of course is basically saying these officers were rewarded for their bad behavior.
Is there any way, or has your law firm reached out to the Inspector General of Police? Does he have this petition in front of him? And is there any communication between the law firm and, of course, the Inspector General of Police?
Yeah, a copy of this petition that was sent to the Police Service Commission itself has been dispatched to the Office of the Inspector General of Police. We still await communication from both the Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police. We are hopeful that this time around, with public pressure, something will be done. Let me also add that a copy was also sent to the Attorney General of the Federation, because we have information that the recommendations of the National Human Rights Commission panel were sent to the Office of the Attorney General, and till date, those recommendations have not, to the best of our knowledge, been implemented.
All right, for the benefit of our viewers, can you break down what really led to the death of the peacemaker himself? There are stories that he was selected to go, bridge peace between two warring factions or so. So can you bring it to the limelight so that we can understand, and the benefit of our viewers especially?
So in summary, what happened in 2019, there were, rival court clashes in the Kana local government in Rivers State, and the chairman of the local government, sought the support of certain persons, of course, with the endorsement of the Commissioner of Police, the DPO, and other stakeholders, to bring the warring factions together, warring parties together, and bring about peace, which was the ultimate desire then. And in order to do this, they had actually reached out to some of those warlords, and quite a number of them were responding. And as part of the process, they went to meet one of these stakeholders who surrendered his arms. And I'm talking about, in the course, a full convoy including the chairman of the local government at that time, including police officers attached to the local government, and other members of the local government, both in the executive and legislative arm. They all went, received these arms, and on their way back in the convoy, they were stopped by these officers of the IGP Intelligence Response Unit. They explained their mission, but these men took them. Remember that these people are in Rivers State, but these men took them to their base in Uyo Cross River State, Cross River State, where they detained them and eventually released the local government chairman, amongst others, but retained Dumsira curiously. And after quite a lot of pressure, and then after they had to pay 1.5 million naira, after 17 days, they released Dumsira, and thereafter the officers continued to pressure Dumsira and his family members for 3 million naira for them to close the case. They said for them to close the file. Another funny thing. But then, because these people could not afford it, they gave them whatever little token they could afford. But thereafter, after some weeks again, the officers came and rearrested Dumsira, and that was the last time the family members ever saw Dumsira, because they kept him incommunicado despite all their repeated requests to see him, despite the repeated requests of lawyers to see him. They did not have access to him. Eventually, they had to file fundamental rights enforcement suit, in which the court, after hearing them, also, granted their prayers and ordered the immediate release of Dumsira, but this was never complied with. Remember that all of these were communicated to the Inspector General of Police. None of these orders were adhered to. And eventually, after some pressure, they got to find out that some charge was filed against Dumsira in a court. When they went to the court and found the record of the proceedings there, they realized that Dumsira was never produced in that court, and that case itself was struck out for want of diligent prosecution. And yet, the police still did not respond to the family members on the whereabouts or status of Dumsira. It was not until after a lot of other efforts, and then the National Human Rights Commission panel was set up in October, after the NSAS protest in October 2020, that these officers appeared after a lot of pressure as well and threats from the panel. And then they confirmed that Dumsira was killed in custody and that he died during an operation. Now, they never explained how a detainee was killed during an operation that they went out for by some criminals. They never explained the whereabouts of the body of Dumsira. They never explained why they did not release the body to the family. Until date, none of that has been done. And then the panel reached a decision and found against them, found in favor of the family, awarded the compensation. They recommended that these officers should be prosecuted, but till date, nothing has happened with that regard, even though the compensation has been paid to the family. And like I said, while we commend the efforts of the National Human Rights Commission, it is not enough. And the question we ask is this indeed how justice is done? Is this indeed how the family is going to end this matter and know that those who are responsible for the unlawful killing of their son, of their husband, of their father will just go about unpunished.
This is a very, very disheartening tale to hear, and the fact that this is not even fiction, it's the reality of someone whose life ought to have been protected by Nigeria's law enforcement, but the explanations that we're hearing, that you're giving us right now, that the police gave, does not in any way, shape or form make sense. And we're hoping that we can get a clearer picture of what really went down and that justice is served, even though in situations like this, I would always say that what really is justice? Justice that cannot bring back this life of the person. Is it really justice? I think my final question will be the impact of the state government. Was the state government involved? Were they informed? And did they make any move to ensure that, you know, there was some measure of justice being given to the family?
Well, I'm not aware if the state government was informed during the whole processes that happened before the eventual decision at the National Human Rights Commission. But one thing that is certain is that the Ghana local government, which sought the services of Dumsira itself, was carried along all. In fact, the ultimate petition that was done to the National Human Rights Commission panel was actually emanated from the local government legislative assembly itself. And so they were at least fully aware, and whether the state governor or state government in terms of the state house of assembly was aware, I'm not sure of that. But you see, again, the question one will now ask is this: these are people who were called upon by officials of government to come and act on behalf of the government, at least of the local government area, to come and restore peace to the area. And these persons could not even get justice. Imagine the thousands and millions of other Nigerians who do not have this access and yet could still not get justice. So what it tells you is that there is so much that is going on that is unheard, that is unspoken of, because people do not have voices. So it is important that we all commit ourselves to the process of the reforms of our law enforcement agencies, because anybody indeed can be a victim.
It's a really sad story there. We definitely will love to see an update in that regard. We're glad that we could have this opportunity, and we're hoping more media platforms can jump on this conversation as well, so we can create more awareness and put pressure to ensure that there is some measure of closure for the family. It's such a sad place to be, not having this closure and reliving this every time without seeing any positive feedback. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning, Deji.